most of the 20th century, scientists believed mammals during the age of dinosaurs were little more than tiny, helpless creatures, small enough to fit in the palm of your hand, about the size of a mouse. According to the fossil evidence available at the time, these early mammals spent their lives hiding in burrows, avoiding predators, and waiting for the dinosaurs to disappear. They were seen as weak, primitive, and completely overshadowed by the giant reptiles that ruled the planet. There was little evidence suggesting these animals were capable of anything extraordinary. But over the last few decades, remarkable fossil discoveries began to challenge that view. New specimens preserved in astonishing detail revealed that early mammals were far more adaptable and complex than scientists had ever imagined. One of the greatest advantages they evolved was something that seems ordinary today. It was fur. For years, scientists suspected that early mammals were already covered in hair, but direct evidence was extremely rare. Then, in 2010, researchers studying 100-million-year-old amber from southwestern France uncovered microscopic strands of ancient mammal hair trapped inside fossilized tree resin. Under the microscope, the structure of the hairs looked strikingly similar to the fur of modern mammals. The discovery revealed something important. Even during the age of dinosaurs, early mammals were already warm-blooded animals insulated by fur. But scientists have uncovered even more impressive evidence. In China, paleontologists discovered Fasttra, a semi-aquatic mammalia form that lived roughly 165 million years ago during the Jurassic period. Its fossil preserved clear impressions of dense fur across large parts of the body, providing some of the strongest evidence that early mammal relatives were already highly adapted to regulating body temperature. And Fasttra was not simply a primitive insect hunter. Its broad tail and limb structure suggest an animal adapted for swimming and hunting in water, somewhat similar to modern otters or beavers. The discovery shocked paleontologists because it revealed that mammals had already evolved surprisingly specialized lifestyles far earlier than scientists once believed possible. That single adaptation changed everything. Unlike reptiles, which relied heavily on environmental temperatures, mammals could generate and retain their own body heat. While giant dinosaurs dominated the daytime world, small mammals gained an advantage in darkness. prime example was Morganucodon. They could hunt insects at night, move through colder temperatures. This allowed them to remain active during colder nights, survive sudden climate changes, and explore environments many reptiles struggled to endure. And in a prehistoric world shaped by an unstable climate, that ability may have become one of the most critical survival tools. Additionally, early mammals possessed another advantage, one that would quietly reshape their survival in the future, and that was their teeth. Most reptiles, including many dinosaur species, had relatively simple teeth designed for a limited range of functions. But mammals evolved something very different. Incisors for cutting, canines for gripping, molars for crushing and grinding. Instead of relying on a single tooth shape, mammals developed specialized tools inside their mouths. And that gave them a massive evolutionary advantage. Because in a changing world, the ability to eat different kinds of food can mean the difference between survival and extinction. For decades, paleontologists have studied fossilized teeth to understand how these early mammals lived. And modern CT scanning technology has revealed something extraordinary. A group of ancient mammals known as multituberculates had incredibly complex molars covered in hundreds of tiny cusps and ridges. These animals lived during the Jurassic period and became one of the most successful groups of mammals during the age of dinosaurs. Some paleontologists even compare them to the rodents of prehistoric Earth because of their adaptability and enormous ecological diversity. At first, many early mammals mainly fed on insects, but over millions of years, some species adapted to entirely new food sources, including seeds, fruits, and flowering plants that began spreading across Earth during the Cretaceous period. Their teeth evolved alongside their diet. Sharp cusps became broader grinding surfaces. Simple jaws became specialized feeding systems capable of processing plant material far more efficiently than before. And while ecosystems continued to change around them, these mammals kept adapting. Because survival in prehistoric Earth was not just about strength, it was about flexibility. But warmth and flexible diets were only part of the story. Early mammals also evolved something that may have given them a critical advantage in a world filled with giant predators. Superior hearing. Over millions of years, the ancestors of mammals slowly transformed parts of their lower jaw into the tiny bones of the middle ear. In ancient reptile-like ancestors, these bones originally helped connect the jaw to the skull. But as mammals evolved, the bones became smaller and more specialized, eventually forming the delicate structures modern mammals use to detect sound with incredible precision. This enabled early mammals, such as Ionoconodon, to hear the subtle movements of prehistoric predators in the dark. It helped them survive effectively in the fully developed prehistoric world, and it was crucial because most early mammals were nocturnal. While dinosaurs dominated the daytime world, mammals adapted to life at night. Sensitive hearing allowed them to move through forests, hunt insects, communicate, and escape danger under the cover of darkness. Long before mammals ruled the earth, survival depended on one simple ability: finding shelter. Around 250 million years ago, during the Triassic period, the planet was experiencing extreme environmental instability. Mass extinction events, intense heat, and long periods of drought pushed countless species to the edge of extinction. But one small mammal ancestor may have discovered a way to endure. Its name was Thrinaxodon. At first glance, Thrinaxodon still looked partly reptilian. Its legs extended outward from the body, and it lacked the external ears of modern mammals. But it already possessed several mammal-like traits, including differentiated teeth and evidence of fur. Most importantly, it could dig. Thrinaxodon built underground burrows along riverbanks, creating shelters that protected it from deadly surface temperatures and harsh environmental conditions. And deep underground, it may have entered a state similar to hibernation or estivation, slowing its metabolism to conserve energy during extreme heat and drought. Scientists discovered remarkable evidence of this behavior inside a fossil burrow found in South Africa. Using powerful synchrotron X-ray technology, researchers found the skeleton of a Thrinaxodon lying beside an injured amphibian known as Brumastega. The amphibian had several healing broken ribs, suggesting it had crawled into the burrow seeking refuge. Meanwhile, the Thrinaxodon may have been dormant, unaware that another animal had entered its shelter. The discovery revealed something extraordinary. The ancestors of mammals did not survive simply because they could dig burrows. They had already evolved behaviors that allowed them to withstand environmental catastrophe. And in a world repeatedly devastated by climate extremes and mass extinctions, that ability to retreat underground and conserve energy may have become one of the earliest keys to mammalian survival. But surviving underground was only one strategy. Some early mammals escaped danger by moving upward, into the trees. In 2002, paleontologists in northeastern China uncovered one of the most important mammal fossils ever discovered. A tiny creature called Eomaya. Its name means ancient mother, and it lived approximately 125 million years ago during the Cretaceous period. At only a few inches long, Eomaya seemed fragile compared to the giant dinosaurs surrounding it. But its skeleton revealed something remarkable. Its limbs were slender and flexible, its fingers were elongated, and the structure of its ankles and claws showed clear adaptations for climbing. Eomaya was built for life in the trees. That ability may have given early mammals a major survival advantage. While many predators hunted across the forest floor, tree climbing allowed small mammals to escape into spaces that large dinosaurs could not easily reach. High above the ground, Eomaya could search for insects, hide from predators, and protect its young in relative safety. For scientists, it offered one of the clearest windows ever discovered into the early evolution of placental mammals, the group that would eventually include humans. And perhaps most importantly, Eomaya revealed that even during the age of dinosaurs, mammals were already exploring new environments and developing specialized survival strategies. They were not simply hiding from dinosaurs, they were adapting around them. Some mammals went even further. They did not just climb trees, they learned to glide between them. In 2006, scientists in China discovered the fossil of an extraordinary creature called Volaticotherium. At first glance, it looked unlike any early mammal ever found before. Stretching between its limbs was a thin membrane of skin covered in fur, similar to the gliding surface seen in modern flying squirrels. This structure, known as a patagium, allowed Volaticotherium to glide through prehistoric forests more than 125 million years ago. Long before bats evolved powered flight, this small mammal had already adapted to life above the forest floor. Its sharp teeth suggest it was likely an insect hunter, moving through the trees under the cover of darkness while avoiding predators below. For decades, mammals from the dinosaur era were imagined as simple, ground-dwelling creatures with limited lifestyles. But Volaticotherium revealed a diverse world. Even while dinosaurs dominated the planet, mammals were already expanding into entirely different ecological niches. Some burrowed underground. Some climbed trees, and some silently glided through the skies of the prehistoric world. Like a flying squirrel from the age of dinosaurs, Volaticotherium showed that early mammals were far more adaptable and innovative than anyone had once believed. Then came a discovery that shattered one of the oldest assumptions in paleontology: the belief that mammals only lived in fear of dinosaurs. Scientists uncovered the fossil of a powerful mammal called Rappenomammus in northeastern China. And unlike the tiny mammals researchers were used to finding, this animal was enormous for its time. Roughly the size of a modern badger or small wolf, Rappenomammus possessed strong jaws and sharp carnivorous teeth built for tearing flesh. But the real shock came from inside its stomach. Embedded within the fossilized ribcage were the fragmented bones of a young dinosaur called Psittacosaurus. Not scavenged bones scattered nearby, actual stomach contents. For the first time, scientists had direct evidence that some mammals were actively feeding on dinosaurs. It was a stunning reversal of the traditional image of prehistoric life. Instead of helpless creatures hiding beneath the feet of giants, At least some mammals were predators themselves. It's not known exactly how Rapena hunted, but it may have targeted injured. Some researchers have even suggested cooperative hunting behavior, similar to modern mammalian predators. But one thing became clear. The relationship between dinosaurs and mammals was far more complex than scientists once imagined. These small mammals were not simply surviving in the shadows of giants. They were competing, adapting, and in some cases, fighting back. In the end, the survival of mammals was never about strength alone. It was about adaptation. While many dinosaurs grew larger and more specialized, mammals evolved flexibility. Their small bodies required less food during times of crisis. Fur allowed them to retain heat and survive colder environments. Burrows protected them from predators, wildfires, and catastrophic climate shifts. Their specialized teeth allowed them to eat almost anything, from insects to seeds and flowering plants. They cared for their young with milk, increasing the chances of survival in unstable environments. And under the cover of darkness, their advanced hearing and nocturnal lifestyle helped them avoid danger while the giants ruled the daytime world. Dinosaurs dominated through power. Mammals survived through versatility. And when the asteroid struck Earth 66 million years ago, ecosystems across the planet collapsed. Forests burned, food chains disappeared. The age of dinosaurs came to an end. But deep underground, and hidden within the forests of the ancient world, tiny mammals endured. During the Permian, the continents were no longer scattered across the globe. They had merged into a single vast landmass known as Pangaea, surrounded by the global ocean Panthalassa. This arrangement shaped life in subtle but powerful ways. Much of the interior lay far from any coastline. Without the moderating influence of the ocean, these regions became increasingly dry. Rainfall was limited and often seasonal. Over time, large areas shifted towards semi-arid and desert-like conditions. Temperature was another defining factor. On a supercontinent of this scale, heat and cold were not evenly distributed. Inland regions experienced sharp fluctuations, hot days, cooler nights, and strong seasonal contrasts. For the animals living there, this was not just background scenery. It was constant pressure. Water could be scarce. Conditions could change quickly. This was the environmental stage on which early terrestrial life continued to adapt, long before the ecosystems we recognize today began to form. As the Permian world continued to dry, its ecosystems began to change in fundamental ways. The vast, humid forests that had once dominated earlier periods gradually declined. In their place, more open landscapes emerged: seasonal woodlands, scrub, and expanding semi-arid regions. Water was no longer consistently available, and many habitats became fragmented. For organisms still tied closely to moist environments, This shift created a serious constraint. Reproduction, in particular, became a limiting factor. Earlier amphibian-like vertebrates depended on water to lay their eggs. Without reliable wetlands, their life cycle was restricted. But during this time, a crucial evolutionary innovation had already appeared: the amniotic egg. This structure, protected by specialized membranes, allowed embryos to develop in a self-contained environment. It no longer required standing water. Eggs could be laid on land, in relatively dry conditions, away from aquatic predators. Groups that possessed this adaptation, early amniotes, including synapsids, were now able to occupy environments that others could not. As conditions became harsher and more variable, this flexibility allowed them to expand into new ecological spaces, setting the stage for their growing presence across the Permian landscape. The question remains, what allowed early synapsids to succeed in such a demanding world? Part of the answer can be seen in the anatomy of Dimetrodon. Unlike more primitive vertebrates, Dimetrodon possessed a defining feature in its skull, a single opening behind the eye, known as the temporal fenestra. This opening was not merely structural. It allowed for the expansion of the adductor muscles responsible for closing the jaw, increasing both bite force and control. In fossil specimens, the proportions of the skull suggest a relatively large muscle attachment area compared to earlier amphibian-grade animals. This translated into a more effective feeding system. Dimetrodon's teeth were not identical along the jaw. The front teeth were elongated and pointed, suited for seizing prey, while the lateral teeth were laterally compressed and serrated, adapted for slicing. This kind of early heterodonty represents an important step toward the complex dentition later seen in mammals. Biomechanical reconstructions indicate that Dimetrodon could deliver a strong, controlled bite rather than a simple snap. This would have allowed it to process prey more efficiently, reducing the time and energy spent handling food. Its size also played a role. Many species of Dimetrodon reach lengths of around 10 to 13 feet, placing them among the largest terrestrial predators of their time. Combined with a low, sprawling posture, this body plan suggests a predator capable of short bursts of movement rather than sustained pursuit. Evidence from fossil sites, particularly early Permian deposits in what is now North America, shows Dimetrodon remains associated with floodplain environments. These areas would have concentrated prey, allowing for ambush-style predation rather than long-distance chasing. Taken together, these traits formed an integrated system. Skull architecture, tooth specialization, and feeding mechanics all contributed to a more efficient predatory strategy. In the context of the Permian world, this efficiency mattered more than speed or endurance alone. This blend of anatomical innovation and ecological fit allowed synapsids like Dimetrodon to become apex predators long before dinosaurs. The rise of early synapsids was not an endpoint. It was only the beginning of further evolutionary change. During the Middle Permian, a lesser-known event called Olson's extinction disrupted ecosystems. Many earlier amphibian-dominated communities declined, and with their disappearance, ecological space opened once again. Into this shifting landscape emerged a more advanced group of synapsids, the therapsids. They did not replace their predecessors overnight, but over time, their anatomical innovations began to set them apart. One of the most important changes was the development of a secondary palate, a bony structure separating the nasal passage from the mouth. This allowed them to breathe while chewing, supporting longer feeding and more sustained activity, both linked to higher metabolism. Their teeth also became more specialized. Instead of rows of similar blade-like structures, therapsids developed clearer differentiation: incisors for cutting, canines for gripping, and post-canine teeth for processing. This division of labor improved the efficiency of food breakdown, allowing more energy to be extracted from each meal. Posture began to change as well. In therapsids, the limbs shifted more beneath the body. Fossil limb joints and trackway evidence suggest a more upright stance, reducing lateral movement and making locomotion more efficient over land. These changes were not isolated. Together, they point toward a gradual increase in activity levels. More efficient feeding, improved breathing, and better locomotion all contribute to a system capable of sustaining longer periods of movement. This does not mean therapsids were fully warm-blooded in the modern sense. But the trend is clear. Evolution did not stand still. It moved, step by step, toward a new kind of animal, better suited to a more demanding world. By the late Permian, land ecosystems had become relatively stable, with structured food webs, defined roles, and increasingly specialized interactions. On the herbivore side stood animals like Scutosaurus, large, heavily built parareptiles that could exceed 2,200 pounds in mass. Their bodies were barrel-shaped, suggesting an extensive digestive system capable of processing tough, fibrous vegetation. Fossil evidence indicates broad, multi-cusped teeth suited for shearing plant material, while isotopic studies point to a fully terrestrial lifestyle in dry environments. Scutosaurus was not built for speed. Instead, it relied on protection. Its body was covered in bony plates, osteoderms fused into a defensive armor. This made it difficult for predators to inflict fatal damage quickly. Survival, in this case, depended on endurance and defense rather than escape. Opposing it was one of the most formidable predators of its time, Inostrancevia. Reaching lengths of up to 10 feet, this therapsid was equipped with elongated, saber-like canines. Its skull structure allowed for a wide gape, enabling deep, targeted bites. Rather than engaging in prolonged conflicts, Inostrancevia likely relied on precision, ambushing prey and delivering critical wounds. Fossilized remains, including bite marks on bone, suggest interactions between predator and armored herbivores were both frequent and intense. Together, these animals represent a balanced system, defense met by specialization, size countered by strategy. For a time, this balance held. The Permian world had become efficient, organized, and highly adapted, an ecosystem functioning at its peak, just before everything began to change. Then, at the end of the Permian, that stability began to unravel. Around 252 million years ago, Earth entered the most severe biological crisis in its history, the Permian-Triassic extinction event. The trigger lay far to the north, in what is now Siberia, where a vast volcanic system known as the Siberian Traps came to life. This was not a single eruption, but a prolonged phase of flood basalt volcanism, lasting hundreds of thousands to over 1 million years. Layer upon layer of molten rock spread across the landscape, eventually covering millions of square kilometers. But the destruction did not come from lava alone. As magma forced its way through the crust, it intruded into deep deposits of coal, organic-rich sediments, and evaporites. The heat from these intrusions released enormous quantities of gases, carbon dioxide and methane from organic material, and sulfur compounds from surrounding rocks. These gases entered the atmosphere in vast amounts. The effect was cumulative. Rising greenhouse gas concentrations drove a rapid increase in global temperatures. Geological proxies suggest an average warming of approximately 11 to 14 degrees Fahrenheit. On land, this intensified aridity and heat stress. In the oceans, the consequences were even more severe. Warmer water holds less dissolved oxygen. As temperatures rose, oxygen levels declined. At the same time, ocean circulation weakened, limiting the mixing of surface and deep waters. Large regions of the ocean became hypoxic, and in many places, completely anoxic. Under these conditions, anaerobic bacteria thrived. Some produced hydrogen sulfide, a toxic gas that could kill marine life, and, when released into the air, impact land ecosystems as well. The process did not stop there. Loss of vegetation on land reduced carbon uptake. Soil systems destabilized. Additional carbon was released. Each change reinforced the next, forming a cascading chain reaction that moved through the atmosphere, oceans, and biosphere. The result was a near-total collapse of ecosystems. Marine species were especially hard hit, but terrestrial communities followed. It is estimated that up to 90% of marine species and around 70% of terrestrial vertebrate species disappeared. The balanced systems of the late Permian, predators, herbivores, and the environments that supported them, could not withstand this sequence of changes. What had once been a stable, functioning world was gradually dismantled, process by process, until very little remained. In the aftermath of collapse, survival was no longer about strength or dominance. It became a matter of tolerance, of how well an organism could endure instability, scarcity, and sudden change. Among the few that persisted was Lystrosaurus. This stocky, beaked herbivore appears again and again in early Triassic fossil deposits across what were once separate regions of Pangaea. In some assemblages, it accounts for the overwhelming majority of terrestrial vertebrate remains, a pattern paleontologists describe as a disaster taxon. Its success was not due to specialization, but flexibility. Bone histology suggests rapid growth rates and a shortened life cycle, allowing populations to recover quickly in unpredictable conditions. The structure of its forelimbs and shoulders indicates strong digging ability. Burrows would have provided shelter from extreme heat, fluctuating oxygen levels, and increased ultraviolet radiation. Alongside it survived small, more derived synapsids, the cynodonts. These animals were significantly smaller in body size, reducing their daily energy requirements. Their differentiated teeth allowed them to process a wide range of food, from insects to plant material. Evidence of a secondary palate and inferred diaphragm suggests more efficient breathing and sustained activity even under environmental stress. Together, these survivors show a clear pattern, not the largest or strongest, but those able to adapt to a world that no longer followed stable rules. As the early Triassic world began to stabilize, a new group started to emerge from the margins. Among them was Proterosuchus, a low-slung predator with a long body and a distinctive downturned snout. Fossils from southern Africa suggest it occupied river margins and floodplains, environments where prey remained concentrated in a recovering ecosystem. Proterosuchus belonged to the Archosaur lineage, a group that would later give rise to crocodiles, pterosaurs, and dinosaurs. Its anatomy reflects early adaptations to harsh conditions, efficient water conservation through uric acid excretion, and a respiratory system capable of extracting oxygen more effectively in low-oxygen environments. It was not yet dominant, but it did not need to be. Gradually, as synapsids declined in ecological influence, archosaurs expanded. The shift had begun. The synapsids did not vanish, they changed. From those small survivors emerged the first true mammals, carrying forward traits shaped over millions of years: differentiated teeth, more efficient breathing, and increasingly complex behavior. Over time, this lineage spread into new environments, diversifying into countless forms. Among them, much later, was Homo sapiens. The story that began in the Permian did not end with extinction. It continued, quietly, persistently, until it became us.